the thing with Death Grips is that I'm not exactly sure what more I can say about them that may add to the conversation of who Death Grips is, or what kind of music they make, or what they try to say about the world, if they do say anything about the world, which I'm sure they do. But for me personally, at least I can speak for myself in my own personal life. I am such a big fan of Death Grips because I feel they are so idiosyncratic in their way of music, in their lyrical style, in their production style, that they just seem so idiosyncratically them. There is no other Death Grips, there is no substitute for them, which is not something you can say for most artists or most kinds of music. You know, earlier today I did a review of Shawn Mendes and Teyana Taylor, and I thought those two artists in particular, they make music in this sort of genre in which they have to compete with similar voices or similar artists. But for Death Grips, I just can't see. I don't know exactly who they're in the genre of hip hop, if you can even call it hip hop. Who their competitors are. There is nothing. It's just them. It's Death Grips. It's incredible, and the way they experiment with music, sonically and rhythmically, and all of this stuff, always astounds me. No matter what project it is, I listen to with them. So for me, when I see a new Death Grips album, it's like a whole gift for me. It's like this amazing present that I get to enjoy and experience another Death Grips album fully, in a way that it feels like such a nice artistic statement. I mean, that's what I guess this is to some degree what the definition of a fan is, right? When you're a fan of something, you, no matter what it is, no matter what kind of album it is, no matter whether someone says it's good or bad, you want to listen to it because you want to complete your picture of the artist, in a sense that my image of who this person is or who these artists are get painted. It's like a canvas of sorts, and every album's a new chapter of sorts. It's not anything that is good or bad. It's just progressively extending this beautiful canvas of what an artist's life is. So when I hear Death Grips, that is, again, I mean, I'm going on about not even talking about the record, but I feel like this is very, to some degree, when you talk about records, you talk about what draws you to them. And I think when you try to make a review, or when people try to talk about why they like music, or why they like certain kinds of music or certain albums, they essentially are trying to get other people to listen to them as well. They want them to experience this very similar kind of uh, aesthetic experience that they feel, and the only way you can actually do that is to perfectly elucidate your own experience with the music. And for me personally, that's all I can really do. And have to create some kind of objective standards for it and say I like it because I think, on a scale of 1 to 10, the the vocals and lyrics are an 8 or 9. No, those things don't make any sense. The reason why I think the reason why you want to get someone interested in an artist or an album is because you need to somehow convey what made you interested, because you want the other person to be interested in as well. And when I talk about these music, a lot of these reviews or whatever, it's, for me personally, it's because these are just things that I feel like have ingratiated my life, and or have just have put so much meaning in my life. Not necessarily meaning. Meaning is not the right word for it, but it puts a lot of joy in my life, and I want to share some of that things, because a lot of these artists and music, they're also, all these musicians, they're also talented, and maybe they make beautiful music. So I just want to share some of this stuff. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. The Year of the Snitch is probably, it's hard for me to really think of Death Grips as a whole, because I think I've listened to a lot of their albums and I don't really know. I feel like when people talk about music, they think about, well, where should I place it in the ranking of sorts? You have your mental hierarchy of where you think a certain artist, new work fits into this sort of hierarchy of sorts, which I did recently with Prince. But normally I don't really believe that's how things should be talked about. The Year of the Snitch, I think, is, when I listened to it for the first time, being a big fan of Death Grips, I was very drawn to it, and I knew I was going to like it because I don't necessarily like it for the musicality of it, which is always great, but I like it for their spirit and for what they're trying to make and what they try to represent, and their avenue for expression is so radical that I just find it so enthralling to be in their world for the period of time when I listened to their album. It opens up with Death Grips as Online, which when I first heard it, it reminded me of some kind of video game, like those 80s, 90s Metal Gear Solid or whatever, those kind of video gamey soundtracks of sorts. And every song just keeps adding to their sonic palette. It's like, imagine if you close your eyes and you listen to the album, and you just imagine each new sound you hear as a new expression of paint, for example. It's like every new song occupies a different space in your head, and the songs don't necessarily sound the same, because and when you hear them back to back to back, it's like it's filling the different corners of your imagination, and it's pretty incredible because I don't know exactly how many instruments they have on this stuff, how many sound clips, how many what they do. I don't know how they make their music, but I always find it so enthralling and incredible to hear. I don't want to talk too much about this because I feel like my level of interest has already been expressed, and what I actually think about the album isn't necessarily, I don't want to qualitatively think good or bad. It's just this is why I love this album, why I love Death Grips, why I like this album. Again, it feels like when I listen to it, I listened to it a couple of times. It has this very distinct, creative, and special sonic, auditory palette. I think that is not present in most, like 99% of music, at least that I try to listen to, and just to be able to have that experience of being immersed into this world of sounds is always a treat for me. So I'm a big fan of this album, and I love. So I mean, I guess I could talk a little bit about my favorite songs. I like the I saw one music video. I saw the music video for a shit show, which is what was on the Vimeo, and it was quite crazy. I love Streaky. Streaky's such a cool song. Like the things, if you the songs are all the way also like within the album, it's so diverse as well. Streaky's great. Dilemma's great. Little Richard, the opening thing. What is that opening sound? And there's just so many sounds in this thing that when I hear it, I'm just amazed because I never hear things like this in normal pop. You don't hear this stuff on the radio. You don't hear. It's like you're just being exposed and immersed into this world of sounds that you've never really experienced before. Although you can argue that they haven't really deviated so much from their music before. I'm a big fan of all their music. The Bottomless Pit, I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of Ex-Military, Jenny Death, all that stuff, Money Store. So, I mean, it's... I don't have anything more to say. I mean, the thing is, I feel like it's possible to come out of this thinking I haven't really said anything, but I don't really want to say anything. What I want to say is that you check this album out, listen to it, and it is going to maybe a little bit abrasive at first. It might feel a bit abrasive. You might feel turned off on it, but if you pay attention to it and try not to think of the screaming as screaming at you specifically, but think of it as a cathartic release of sorts, everything feels so. It can be seen as quite beautiful, I think, and that's what I see in this album. I think it's pretty incredible and sonically pleasing, and I don't even mean that ironically. I do enjoy this album a lot, and I do think that more people should try to expand their sonic palette to some degree, and this is a great album to just burst that wide open. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this album, and I highly wish that you guys would check it out. Or if anyone's actually, if even just one person watches this and checks out this album, I feel like this 8-9 minutes of mine would have been worth it, and gets involved in Death Grips and starts reading about them and read their lyrics too. So they're quite an interesting group. So yeah, check this stuff out.